Anyway, I was at the hospital this morning and coming home through the field behind our neighborhood, there behind Vista, I found an ear.
You did? A human ear?
Yeah, I thought I should bring it to you.
If that's right, let's take a look at it. Yes, that's a human ear, all right.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum podcast. I'm Ryan from coldsploitation.com, and I'm joined with my co-host Mark.
How's it going?
We're doing okay. We're we had some plans for this episode of the show, and we were all set to do it, and then some bad news came through. Some things that changed our plans. We were getting ready to do a giallo film, as we had promised that we were going to be doing more of as we were going into the almost the 11th year of this show. And I think it was, what was it, like last Thursday, I think, maybe, something like that. We got the news that David Lynch had passed away, sadly, at 78. And so we decided to pivot. Decided that, you know what? We're going to do a David Lynch film for the show instead, because giallo can wait. Topical, timely, and a nice send-off for David Lynch, the filmmaker. Now, how well-versed are you in David Lynch filmography? Yeah, filmography that he's had.
Well, as I was telling you before we were recording this episode, we both know David Lynch. We are very familiar with his works, but we all have a blind spot, not just as reviewers, but this film, movie watchers and enjoyers and critiquers. We all have a certain blind spot for certain directors that, as you would say, their oeuvre hasn't been, gazed upon by our eyes. For some people, it's like Wes Anderson. For others, Coppola. Some Kubrick, Scorsese. For me, David Lynch is regrettably somebody whose filmography, though I've heard great lengths and detail and seen clips and things about a million times from him, the only film of his that I can say that I've seen is Eraserhead, and I saw that only once back in college, and I don't really remember too much about it. To be honest with you, I don't know why I haven't sat down and watched his films, and Twin Peaks is, I'm sure I'd be greatly interested in it. I know how, important to the cultural zeitgeist and, filmmaking he is. I'm playing through, Alan Wake right now for the first time. And, I also was a big fan of Control, and, Remedy is easily, they're very, David Lynch influenced. So, but yeah, it's, something that's regrettable on my part, because maybe this year I'll correct that.
Go back through and do a whole David Lynch filmography watch. Yeah. I'm the same way though. I would say that David Lynch is definitely a blind spot for me. I haven't seen very many things of what he's worked on. I did watch the one short video that he put out not too long ago. I want to say maybe 2 years ago. He did this really weird short film with monkeys, I believe. I didn't like I did not like that one. Found it to be fairly boring. But other than that, yeah, I've not really experienced too much David Lynch. And so, of course, like you, I'm known to all of the things that, he's widely known for. Seen a lot of things that he has in turn influenced, but I've never sat and watched Twin Peaks at all. which is something that I do want to rectify as well. Definitely will be going back to check that out here at some point. But this movie too is not one that I've seen, although I feel like it has kind of entered the zeitgeist for one very particular reason. For Dennis Hopper's famous scene about beer. So it felt like a perfect pick for us because, we wanted to honor David Lynch as a filmmaker, as well as, obviously we do cover beer on the show quite a bit. So it just made sense. So today we're talking about 1986's Blue Velvet. And again, like I said, I have not seen this one. You hadn't seen it either before you watched it here, but we thought it was a good pick. Specifically, and it also makes sense.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say that whole beer scene about, with Dennis Hopper, that like whole thing dates back to even like in high school. I remember a friend showing that in the early days of YouTube from the lunch table, being like, watch this is fucking funny.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it just makes sense. Yeah. And I guess anything you want to add about, like your, besides, obviously what you just said there, anything else you want to add about your introduction to Blue Velvet?
It's got Dennis Hopper, so that's always,
right.
Always a plus.
Kind of a Blood and Black Rum podcast, figurehead
staple.
At this point as well.
He's a staple. Loved me some Dennis Hopper. Brad Dourif.
Yep.
Who doesn't love him?
I mean, we've only done Child's Play 1, but still.
Did we do Child's Play 1? I think we just did the remake, to be honest with you.
I thought we did. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe we didn't do the original Child's Play.
I think we only did the one with Aubrey Plaza and Mark Hamill.
That might be true. I can't remember now. I don't know why. I felt like we did it, but maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
We did. We did. Episode 141. Way back in 2019. Sorry, I had to do a quick Google search to make sure I wasn't incorrect. But yeah, episode 141. So go back and check that out.
Check it out.
That's right.
It's kind of coming back to me now. But anywho, yeah. But I wanted to do Blue Velvet because one, yes, even though it is one of his more well-known films, it's not Dune, it's not Eraserhead. So, I wanted to like kind of do something, smack dab in the middle of his filmography, and it's got, like I said, Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
So I was expecting a good time.
And I kind of wanted to do it as well because I do know that like in David Lynch's filmography, Blue Velvet is one of those, that he has a very strong filmography in general, but Blue Velvet is one of those movies that people kind of pick out as one of his better movies. That's not Eraserhead, right? Because we could have chosen a very stereotypical sort of horror-esque movie with Eraserhead to do for the show, and it would have made perfect sense. And being his first film, it would have made sense to go from the start. But I felt like picking Blue Velvet would be something that is, not necessarily overly done for podcast episodes. And not only that, but it felt like a right time in his filmography as well to kind of pick out something in kind of like the middle or, not quite late level David Lynch, but also not, his earliest works. So I think that's why I kind of thought maybe Blue Velvet would be a good place to kind of pick up and just, right square in the middle of his works. So, it just overall made sense. And not only that too, but some of the most influential elements of Blue Velvet also influenced some of my, things that I really like about contemporary movies and TV, where they kind of go into this neo-noir-esque element that Blue Velvet does very well and kind of sets in motion for some of the other things that were inspired by it. I'm thinking things like Riverdale, which I'm not saying, Riverdale good or bad, but in general, it's very much inspired by David Lynch and his work with like suburban mysteries like Blue Velvet. You know, all of those things I think work very well in this movie, and we'll talk about how that kind of translates to in this film, specifically with like that suburban theme and the noir mystery elements that it has. So let's take a break though to talk about the beer that we have on the show, because we're kind of doing a little weird, tie-in with the movie. Of course, for a movie like Blue Velvet, we have to have Pabst Blue Ribbon on the show. I don't think we've ever done it before, so it was kind of perfect time to do it. There was another choice. I had gotten something else for, the next episode that I had planned on doing. But, as we pivot, so too do we get different types of beer. And PBR is what we decided on today, and kind of like a little whim. So to ask the age-old question from Blue Velvet, do you like Heineken or Pabst Blue Ribbon more?
Well, I like Heineken.
Heineken. Fuck that shit. No, I would agree. Heineken. I prefer Heineken as well.
Do you think that line was written, or do you think Dennis Hopper?
I don't know. It was just Dennis Hopper.
It's
just Dennis Hopper himself loves Pabst Blue Ribbon. I don't know.
Just cocked out of his mind, just like, grabbing him by the nape of his neck, like, let's drink there.
I have no idea. I could see it being written in as like a quirkiness, because obviously Blue Velvet has its quirkiness. Yeah.
Well, that and the fact that this idiot's like on his little date, to the bar, and he's like, "Hey, you ever had Heineken before?" And she's like, "No, I'm 17." And he's like, Heineken's a pretty good beer. You should have Heineken.
I really like Heineken. I really like Heineken.
It's what that's like. It's like those assholes who are like, "Yeah, man, like, I don't like to drink, those cheap beers. I'm not into like Bud or, that kind of stuff. Bush or Coors. Well, hell, we don't get Coors out here. I like that Heineken stuff because I went to college."
I've had a soft spot in my heart for Heineken ever since I got that one little mini keg of the Heineken.
It is great. I do love Heineken.
In the mini keg, it was just like that's me. I'm basically Kyle MacLachlan when I got that Heineken mini keg, and I'm like, I really like Heineken now. sitting there tapping my little mini keg. I like
pump it away.
Yeah.
Just pump it away, Heineken's pretty good.
I like it. That's pretty good, yeah. That's me. So I've always had a soft spot for Heineken, and I do. And also, I do want to point out, if you do have an Aldi in your area, Aldi has a pretty good, cheap alternative to Heineken that they distribute, which could just be Heineken in a different bottle and label. But it's very cheap and affordable, and tastes very, very similar.
It's the Germans getting back at the Dutch.
I can't remember what exactly it's called, but it has some sort of like Dutchy sounding name. But it's not, it's not Heineken. I don't remember what it is, but
it's just the Germans getting back at the Dutch.
Yeah.
But no, I do like Heineken. Will say it's definitely a beer. We've talked about it before, but it's a beer that suffers on the vessel it's in.
Clear bottle.
Do a bottle, for the love of Christ, because the cans, though fine, you get that aluminum tinny taste to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but Heineken's not the one that we're doing here. We're doing PBR. So, from a PBR perspective, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the cheap Pabst Blue Ribbon hipster? It's not cheap anymore. No.
This isn't the Obama years anymore, bud. I don't think hipsters exist anymore. They had to get jobs, or they all died off. Their Cage the Elephant vinyl collection's not gonna,
yeah, right.
Buy itself. But no, I have never been a fan of PBR. Anytime I ever have it, and it's funny as I'm talking about it, I always get a headache. I'm starting to get a headache. It just doesn't do it for me. For a light, adjunct American style lager, it's incredibly sweet, not in like a good way. and it's got a really funky, skunky aftertaste to it. And I made sure too when I bought this to check the cans to make sure they weren't, because a lot of people around here don't drink Pabst, so I had to make sure it wasn't something that's been, rotting away. So, but no, it's fresh because it's good till the end of March. But it's just not for me. Like the taste to it's too sweet. It's light. It is easy drinking. It's that funky aftertaste and the sweet, the overly bready sweetness that I think is just it's just too much. It definitely tastes like the corn there too. It's like a lot of corn sweetness to it. Drinkable, yes. Like if somebody was to give me a Pabst, I'm not going to turn it down. It's not like it's Bud Light or anything, but cheap beer to have, no thanks. I'd rather have a Schlitz or a Old Milwaukee if I were to pick a Pabst brand beer.
One thing that I like,
Dennis Hopper's wrong.
one thing that I like about Pabst is it still comes, the 16-ounce can still comes in the plastic 6-pack with the rings.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very common anymore to see
Especially
beer.
in New York. That's the contraband up here.
Yeah, that is not common to see in the plastic rings like that. So I was surprised actually to see that because I felt like I was in the 80s with that when you gave me that with still on the rings. I was carrying that around like in like fucking Return of the Living Dead when what's his name, the one guy, the punk guy is carrying around the beer and he's like just ripping beers off. That's how I felt with the rings there, but yeah, I would say like I do like PBR in certain instances. It's not my favorite cheap ass beer. It wouldn't be probably my first choice for a cheap ass beer. But it's not too bad. I agree with you that it is very sweet. It's overly sweet in terms of like that corn, probably that the corn base to it is very sweet sometimes. So it can be a little bit overpowering on the sweetness. And other than that, like it does, besides the sweetness, it does have a very like generic-y, beer, taste to it, just beer. So it's not bad. It's just not my go-to. And I can't see myself drinking a lot of them either because of that sweetness. I feel like that would just be a little, like make you sick after a while because of how sweet they are. It's almost like if you were to try to just drink too many malt beverages, right? Like a wine cooler or something. It's just a little too sweet. Can't imagine drinking too many of them. But so in my eyes, Dennis Hopper is wrong as well. Heineken is the superior beer. It has a better body to it, just overall better taste to it. It's more balanced and nuanced. But Pabst is okay in moderation. I think you're right too. I think it's kind of fallen out of favor with like actually everybody kind of. You don't really hear too much about PBR anymore. I remember back in the day, we used to go to Gianna's and they used to have PBR on tap there. That was a big thing that they had.
Getting me all hot and bothered thinking about it.
So, it was a big thing back in the day, but I feel like it's even kind of fallen out of favor. And it keeps getting hot potatoed around too as a company, it seems like. It just keeps getting sold to different places. So I don't know. Maybe it's kind of lost favor. But they still make that 99 beer can pack, don't they?
Yeah, they do. It's like $100.
Is that just 99 regular PBRs?
So they have two different ones I've seen.
Yeah.
They've got the 99 pack, which is like 99 PBRs. But they also have one too that's 33 of the regular, 33 of the extra, which is PBR Ice, and 33 of PBR Low, which is PBR Light.
Which I've never had either of those.
Well, it's not just running out in the wild around here for,
no.
I have seen Pabst Ice in like 12 packs, but I mean, I'm not.
I feel like Pabst Ice has got to be.
Ugh. What would you think would be worse, Pabst Ice or Pabst Light?
I don't know. I feel like Pabst Ice being the extra is going to be even sweeter at 6.5%, right? Like, because generally adding alcohol adds sugar, which adds sweetness.
It's basically gonna be malt liquor.
Yeah. So I
Yes,
feel
well-
like it's gonna just increase the sweetness of the beer, whereas maybe the low wouldn't be that bad. I don't know. Never had either one of them, so it's something to look out for.
Now, last but not least, what's more beery? Genesee beer or Pabst Blue Ribbon? Taste and can, go.
You mean beery as in like standard generic beer?
Just
flavor?
like if it says your stand-in beer in a TV show.
I feel
I'll
like
have one
Jenny.
beer.
I feel like Jenny is a little bit more. I think it's a little bit more balanced, whereas Pabst is sort of like because I think Pabst may be off-putting to some people, where I think Jenny can just be that beer. Just it caters to everybody's flavor profile, whereas I think Pabst is a little too sweet. I'm gonna go with Jenny. Would you say the same?
Yeah, I think also too. Though the Pabst can iconic, it's got too much going on. Jenny's red eyes, just Genesee. Genesee.
Yeah, because the Pabst can is like either pick the ribbon or have the red ribbon in the background. You can't have both. You can't have all of it. So yeah, I agree. It's
got a lot of flair.
It's true. It's true. All right, I guess we should get into Blue Velvet here. Not Blue Ribbon, but Blue Velvet.
You know what we should ask? We should ask in an alternate time, explore the ultimate, Jesus Christ, sorry. Alternate time universe where David Lynch was the one to direct Return of the Jedi. Because George Lucas did offer him a shot to direct Return of the Jedi. Can you imagine what that would have been like?
I don't know. Maybe the ill-received Dune that he did? Maybe similar?
But it's a classic now.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess maybe we wouldn't have so many revisionisms.
Isn't this great? Look at this. On IMDb's trivia, one of Zack Snyder's favorite films. I highly doubt that.
What, Blue Velvet is?
Yeah, that's some trivia on one of Zack Snyder's. Which I can only think Zack Snyder would be interested in this movie because he's like, boobs, nipple,
yeah,
boobs.
Guess we'll talk about the boobs in this. All right, so Blue Velvet though, 1986 movie directed by David Lynch, written by David Lynch, stars Kyle MacLachlan, which he would later become a big part of Twin Peaks and a lot of actually Kyle MacLachlan I think just recently stated that if it wasn't for David Lynch he probably wouldn't have been in the movie business because he got his big breaks from David Lynch. So I think this is one of his bigger movies in terms of what he's starred in. I can only really see him as the mayor from Portlandia, but he did do other things too.
You are the only one that is clinging on to Portlandia.
It's true.
Like I got news for you. It's been a long time.
I know it has. It's kind of surprising how long it's been, to be honest with you. Actually, I just saw Fred Armisen the other day. The man hadn't aged for a while because he was like 50 something looking, like 30 something hipster, but he's starting to look his age now. It's unfortunate, but not unfortunate to look your age. I shouldn't say that. I'm just saying to be reminded that people are getting older. Okay, back to Blue Velvet though. So this movie is a really interesting, has a really interesting setup, right? Because the beginning of the movie and where we get to at the end of the movie are very much kind of set apart to the point where the opening parts of the movie are sort of like this lead-in that are kind of like serendipitous, right? It's just kind of like these things happen, and then this happened, and then this caused this, and then we get to the overall crux of the movie, which I like quite a bit because I think the way that this movie starts out, where you get this introduction to Lumberton as this kind of quirky suburban town, looks kind of cute and quaint, and people are tending to their gardens and standing outside their little shops on the corner, and you get like a nice little radio station tie-in to Lumberton. Everybody's got little, lumber signs around, and it's like it's a small town feel, and everything feels very normal and picturesque and sweet. And then the movie starts out with Kyle MacLachlan's father having a heart attack or stroke or whatever he's had. I think it's maybe a stroke because he's clutching his neck while he's watering the garden. And it's sort of the way that it's shot shows, all these like things happening at the same time. Like the water's kind of leaking out of where the faucet is. So it's not like the seal is not seated very well. And
I thought originally it was like a bee sting afterwards.
Oh, right.
Around like,
because it shows the insects there as it yeah. But it kind of like leaves the actual like diagnosis a bit vague, because then he ends up with like a
he got stung by a bee and he needs a neck brace. That bee will bite.
I think it's it leaves it. My guess is stroke, because he like clutches his neck and sort of like that common like blood clot sort of thing. But yeah, it leaves it very vague. But what I like about it is it kind of sets this in motion. And so what is that inciting element? The film doesn't really come back to that often, right? Because it's like, it seems like that would be a big part of Jeffrey's life, is having to come home from college because his dad has a medical condition. But instead, the film doesn't really focus on that very much at all. And right after he's done visiting his father in the hospital, Jeffrey comes to find a cut off ear in the yard. And so now his curiosity is piqued by finding an ear, which he's just like kind of scoops up, puts in a paper bag, and decides, hey, man, I should bring this to the cops. It seems like something that they should be alerted to, is just a random ear found in the yard. And so what do you think about this? Like, in terms of how David Lynch kind of sets up these very disparate, through lines to get to the plot of this, murder mystery, or, mystery of what's going on in this small town. How did you feel about that?
I'm fine with it, because the 80s was pretty big on the whole, small town aesthetic for a lot of these type of films, and the whole 1950s, style, remember what time when black people couldn't vote? Wasn't that great? And you get to see that, and women still had to make your coffee. It was a great time to be alive, because you get to see that kind of Reagan era idyllicism of calling back to, the 50s, with the guy standing on the old style fire truck as it's driving by, and, dreamlike, as, Bobby Vinton's Blue Velvet's playing too, and the opening, it's,
going to a fucking, sort of like night jazz club sort of thing that, I've never been privy to. I've
what small town, by the way, speaking of people who are from a small town, what small town has a fucking CD jazz club for you to go to?
You don't have a brooding jazz club on the outskirts of town that you can visit when you're just, and then when you go in there and they're like, what are you having? And you'd expect to order what, like a bourbon or something. No, I'll take an espresso black while you write your screenplay
from a nice Italian songstress from like Napoli, what's going on here? But no, I mean, like, it's got that nice undertone to it to kind of show this, dreamlike, so-called idyllic imagery of, the 80s at the time, in the clash with the modern, which we get to see,
Yeah, I like it, and I guess too we should point out that in the beginning of this movie, it has what you would consider to be a very sort of like quirky neo-noirish style to it, where it kind of treats the proceedings in, like, I would say, a sort of surrealist fashion, but also in like this like a pseudo comedy fashion, where it's you have Kyle MacLachlan's character Jeffrey, who's kind of just more a curious guy, and so he finds this ear and he's like, huh, that's weird, I think I'll get involved in this investigation. And, he's a young guy, just fresh out of college, or he's just in college, really, I should say. And kind of gets roped up into this curiosity about this mystery. And so I think part of the main theme of Blue Velvet, as it moves through this idea of Jeffrey investigating, is the fact that, you have this innocence at the beginning of the movie where it's very kind of idealistic, and the suburban life with its quirkiness is kind of inviting. It's sort of like a Leave It to Beaver style, like, oh, everything's kind of fun, and, I like visiting the diner and getting a BLT every now and then, and,
did you think that was a BLT?
I don't know what it was, to be honest with you.
Well, it's just a generic sandwich. I would
look like a pile of sandwich bread with some lettuce on it or something. I don't know what it was.
So that's why I was going with this, probably like chicken salad. Like, like
I hope not. I will not have David Lynch putting chicken salad in his movie. What kind of analysis would we need to do if that was chicken salad?
That's what
changes the whole message of the movie.
That's what I'm thinking. In his idyllic diner, there, he's sitting down and he's chowing away on a nice chicken salad sandwich.
But I guess what I was trying to get to is that I really like the idea that it starts out with this very idyllic scenario. Everything seems like, they've got their lives ahead of them, right? Jeffrey, and he meets up with, the local police officer's daughter, played by Laura Dern.
Ooh, and I'm going to feel like such an asshole saying this, but I have to. God, when I saw her on screen, I was like, those eyebrows and chin, where do I know them?
Couldn't picture it?
Well, I could picture it, but then you said Laura Dern, and I was like, motherfucker is Laura Dern.
You couldn't see the Jurassic Park resemblance?
Well, that's what I was thinking. In my head, I was thinking like, God, looks like, and then it clicked.
Yeah, I mean, she's very young in this movie, 19. I think she was when this movie released. So she's very young. And I can, but I definitely noticed her right away because, like you said, she does have a very distinctive, like, eyebrow look and just facial look, and her blonde hair as well just really stands out. And then I would say that she does, while she did age between this movie and Jurassic Park, like you can definitely tell it's her. But
also too would have been great what the hell, have her she could have played with like the way she looked in this film, like Cindy from the Brady Bunch movie, but like the 90s version with Gary Cole.
Yeah. But I guess like the idyllic element of their innocence too, as being young, it just kind of setting out to, they think it's like interesting to kind of get involved in this mystery. And so the film, David Lynch kind of sets that first half of the movie where they're doing their like amateur investigations and detective work. It's kind of like a little, I keep coming back to this word, but like quirkiness to it, right? Because they don't really recognize the extent of the danger that they're involved in. And the film kind of plays that up with the way that it show, like the cinematography shows it too, because it's very, kind of lighthearted. There's like a lighthearted noir-like tone to it at the beginning. And then later on in the movie, as it starts to get more serious, and as Jeffrey kind of starts to realize the extent of what he's kind of delved into, those quirky moments, those, like sort of happy-go-lucky, pleasantries, they're gone from the movie. They drop out in favor of the film going completely demented. Pretty much once Dennis Hopper's character gets involved in the movie, because I would say Blue Velvet probably about, I want to say this movie's 2 hours. I want to say about an hour in. It goes from like that happy-go-lucky, hey, the innocence of youth, to the more sinister elements that the mystery takes into account. So that's, I think, a good representation of Blue Velvet as a movie and its themes. At least from my viewpoint. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a really beautiful looking film, and like I do love how he takes the noir style and colorizes and modernizes it for for the 80s. It's very well done. Like a lot of the night shots are really great, and the edits are great and kind of fit with it. And it's very unsuspecting for this type of story, because again, like noir films are very much this is pulpy, but it's very much more like cop, detective, private inspector, somebody of going around trying to solve a crime. And there's a voyeurism here because it's, instead of somebody whose job is that, like, that's kind of like the opening part of the movie when he bags this fucking ear and, takes it down to the Lumberton, detectives, police station. And the detective's like, you're going to stop this now because, we're going to leave the real police to work to the police. And he's like, yes, sir, I won't be doing this anymore. And then he's like, I'm part of a mystery.
Yeah.
Basically, that child's like, ooh, I'm going to help them cops.
Yeah, you really do get that very well at the beginning of the movie where, he's kind of like, so eager, the way that Kyle MacLachlan plays it too, of just sitting there in the detective's office, and he's kind of like, so I just want to ask you about like that ear, like, what do you know about it? And the cop's like, no, I can't really tell you anything. I know you understand that, right? And you won't be doing this again, and you're just going to leave it alone, and maybe I'll tell you about it once everything is all wrapped up.
That cop's going to be referred to from here on out as not John Saxon.
Very true, very true. He is not John Saxon,
but no, like it really is, like, like also too, I was thinking the whole time he bagged the fucking ear. So one, he tampered with evidence. 2, he brings this rotting ear that has like festering mold and bugs and fire ants crawling around it into the station. No, it's like, oh my God, what the fuck is that smell? Like, what smells like Bigfoot's dick? He's able to bring it on up, and nobody's like, that ear smells. And I was also laughing too, hysterically, at the whole part where he's telling the detective, he's like, I found an ear, and the detective's like, a human ear?
Yeah.
That is a human ear?
Yeah, because again, I think that kind of sums up.
He plays it so straight, it's so deadpan, like, here in Lumberton, we get a lot of these human ears showing.
I think that again, that sums up like that whole element of like the sort of innocence that David Lynch is going for at the beginning of the movie, where everybody kind of plays it straight, and you have a kind of a ridiculous situation with this ear, and it almost plays into a comedy at some points because, when he holds out the bag and then he just looks into it and he's like, yep, that's an ear. It just all is very comedic and meant to be humorous. Sort of like setting the viewer up to be like, oh, this is going to be, it's an ear, but it's going to be like one of those quirky, like, cozy mysteries, right? Where they get into it and they solve it, but like no one's actually going to be in any danger, and they're just going to, they're going to figure this out. And it's going to be kind of funny. And, I think immediately after Dennis Hopper gets into the picture as Frank, that kind of magic is dispelled. And you are the viewer is treated to like a complete 180 in terms of how the movie presents things. Instead of being kind of quirky and lighthearted, it moves to a very dark and sinister feeling very quickly, especially as, that whole first scene where we kind of go through this process of watching Dennis Hopper beat the shit out of what's her name? Isabella Rossellini's character, Dorothy. And, just kind of like being, again, you said it, the term voyeuristic, and that we are also Kyle MacLachlan shoved into the closet, just kind of sitting there watching this occur.
Were you getting Rear Window vibes from that?
Mm-hmm. Yep, little rear window. I also like, I guess coming back to that scene of being in the closet too. I really like that idea of him being the voyeur in the closet and sort of being titillated by this experience, because I guess you could say that there's an unrealistic element here at play that's almost written from a like a male gaze viewpoint of, you broke into this woman's house. You went into the closet and you're just kind of staring there while she's stripping down and going to take a shower. You get found, and what happens? She wants to have sex with you.
She wants to blow you, yeah.
Yeah. And so there's that sort of male gaze element of like, wow, is this someone's fucking fantasy of just, you're a voyeur, you get found, and, everything. And not only that, but like, she's very into you. I find it to be an interesting element of Blue Velvet in that it's unrealistic, but at the same time makes perfect sense in the way in the surrealism of the movie, of that sort of the way that it invites Jeffrey to be this type of, to lose his innocence, right? Because that's the whole idea, is sort of a coming of age story of losing your innocence and recognizing that the things that you kind of took for granted around you, living as sort of like a privileged person in a suburban society, are not really the realism of what's going on around you. It's sort of a facade that's been presented to you that you kind of take at face value. And
how do you like the fact that the seedy apartment with all the drug trades are literally right down the road?
Mm-hmm.
Where are they?
Yeah.
Oh, right over there.
I think too, though, that's a perfect example of something that you just kind of overlook too, of just not really paying attention to that sort of thing. And it again, like the facade of it being kind of thrown under the rug too, because you have, I think the perfect example of that is when you get that like really ridiculous like jingle with the radio station where you're meant to, it's like, oh, Lumberton, it's going to be such a cute little quaint town and we love our lumber, and you go out and chop down your trees, and then you've got this seediness happening right around town. It's all about the facade and seeing through that facade in this movie. So I really like that, though. I think that the scene in the apartment with him being in the closet is probably one of the best scenes in Blue Velvet. It's one that really drew me in, where I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Not necessarily because of, obviously Dorothy getting beaten and kind of molested. But the fact that it's like that changeover from being this quirky something of a comedy noir to much more dark places that this is going to go. I like it a lot. And I think that, Kyle MacLachlan does a really good job. Isabella Rossellini does a great job as Dorothy. And Dennis Hopper is fantastic. So anytime Dennis Hopper's on screen is, it's a treat. And that's the first time you really get to see him in all of his glory, because you've never really met Frank before. And so he pulls out all of his, various quirks about him. So, you get the sort of Freudian Oedipal complex. You get his sucking on whatever gas he's using in his...
It's, what the hell? I had to look. It's on IMDb.
Is it nitrous?
It's like a nitrous.
Some sort of, yeah.
That apparently makes your sexual experiences better. Which, Dennis Hopper would probably know, because I imagine the man tried everything.
Yeah.
But originally, now again, this is just from IMDb's trivia. Who knows? But originally, the plan was for it to be helium. That would have been great.
It's just when he gets done sucking on, like, Dorothy! Dorothy, shut the fuck up!
But I think
why
Dennis
would it be
Hopper,
helium? That seems weird.
Because and then David Lynch said it's people are gonna laugh. That's not what we're going for. But Dennis Hopper would be like, no, it's fucking great. Which I do think. I think Dennis Hopper, if there was one person who could pull off menacing and not be laughing at, I think Dennis Hopper could do on helium.
I agree, because again, this movie, like, it has a sort of anti-realism to it, where I don't know that you would necessarily see Frank as a real character, right? He is obviously a caricature psychopath, but Dennis Hopper does a very good job of selling it in this movie. Where, you know, he does still seem threatening. There's that great scene too when Frank finally finds Jeffrey with Dorothy when they're coming out of the apartment together, and he's like, let's go for a ride, and Jeffrey's like, no, I don't want to, and he said, do what? And Jeffrey says, go for a ride. And he's like, go for a ride? It's a great idea. Let's go. You know, and he kind of turns it around on him. I think that there's a great, you know, character study in Frank. Whether you find him realistic or not is a different story. But, you know, for the purposes of this movie and the surrealism of it, I'll allow it. And I think that Dennis Hopper does a really good job there. Do you find him threatening? Like, I feel like this is the guy who you're friends with, but you just don't really know what he's going to do at any given moment.
He's the wild card. He's Charlie from It's Always Sunny.
Yeah.
No, I do. He's definitely menacing. Dennis Hopper is incredibly menacing in this film and very terrifying. And his sadism and, you know, depravity. Mm-hmm. This is, I think, one of the more absolutely batshit but believable performances for somebody to be like a, you know, totally, you know, psychopathic.
Mm-hmm.
He's fucking great. And I think it's works incredibly well because most of the time when you see these types of characters, they're very, you know, either overplayed or overstated or too understated. And they don't really, you know, fit the mold and, you know, give off a truly menacing presence. But I think Dennis Hopper totally nails it because he's totally riding the line on, like, you know, high and low, going from, you know, angry to pissed to, you know, wanting to suck on a titty, you know. Mm-hmm. He's just all over the place.
The edible complex that he has. And yeah.
He does a great, and like I said, he does a absolutely fantastic job. So no, I totally buy into Frank as a villain.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. And I'm not entirely sure exactly thematically what David Lynch is trying to say about Frank's Oedipal complex and whether that factors into Jeffrey's as well. I know that there's been some psychological study of the movie to kind of say that there is this Oedipal complex where Jeffrey, you know, it's kind of Jeffrey exploring the taboos of wanting a mother-like figure in Dorothy as well. I don't necessarily agree with that, nor do I see it presented that well. Now, Blue Velvet was apparently a 4-hour-long movie at one point, so it's possible that in the scope of cutting this movie down, it lost some of the Oedipal complex that maybe Lynch had, you know, put in there for Jeffrey. But as it stands for what we see, I don't necessarily see it as an Oedipal complex for Jeffrey. Now, for Frank, yes. I mean, I don't think we ever get an explanation for it, but it's there. It's just a thing that he has, and it's, you know, it's just part of his character. But I don't necessarily see it throughout as a theme, in my opinion. But
no, I would agree. I don't think you don't really think the film's interested in that too much.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's more of a kink than like an actual theme.
Yeah, and I think too, you know, the film explores multiple different types of kinks too, right? Like S&M, Dorothy or a forced S&M, right? Because Dorothy is used to being beaten, so part of her kink is also having that happen. But whether that's a kink or whether that's something that she's just adopted as part of sexuality is something that I think the film leaves open. And the other thing too that it continually comes back to is that loss of innocence for Jeffrey, because what does Jeffrey do in this movie? He starts to have a relationship with an older woman. He starts to have a relationship with Sandy, who he also loves. So there's that adulterousness to the loss of innocence. And then not only that, what's that?
Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah. And then not only that, there's that whole scene where she asks him to hit her. he doesn't want to, and then she kind of goes into hysterics, so he does. And so
Hold on. Why do you say that with like a tone of like, can't like, he hit her with? No, he did his job.
no, no, but the film keeps coming back to that, and he obviously has flashbacks to that because it is a very, it's going to be something that he remembers probably for the rest of his life, is the fact that he was induced into kind of hitting her. And it kind of shows again the way that those types of things can be influential in your life, and things that you were really expecting to happen do because of these the sequence of events that occur in this movie.
What a romantic encounter, by the way. I love you and I want to protect you. So I'm going. You need help, but first you need my penis to get.
I know. It's
and then after, your disease is in me. Time to go. Hope you do better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we're necessarily supposed to see Jeffrey as the the fully good guy here, because you're right. Part of it is like, you know what, I just saw you get beaten up, but sure, I'll have sex with you. Sounds like a good time.
You holding the knife to my head as you're about ready to give me a blowy, hot.
Again, though, I think it's still the whole idea of loss of innocence and exploring those taboos that you're afraid to explore. I like too the idea that well, first of all, let's just say he put his disease in me is definitely a phrase for talking about sex. And probably not the one that you want to hear, especially if you're Jeffrey.
Well, not only that though, too. I think they didn't talk about a pullout game because after they're done having sex, she's like, you're still in me.
You're still in me. I'll keep you. Yeah, I'm gonna keep you around in me. I mean, again, too, like these are some very like cringeworthy things. Like people like to cringe about the word moist, but man, a couple of those times, it gave me a little blush. Well, watching by myself.
The difference with moist though is just the word itself. How it sounds,
I know.
Come dripping from my pussy. And
to be honest with you, too, the whole encounter with Dorothy naked in the living room, and then Sandy there, and she's saying like he left his disease in me and stuff, like makes me. It definitely very cringeworthy in terms of like the embarrassment, the level of embarrassment there.
Not only that though, too. Again, like this is where I kind of think the film kind of a little bit goes off the rails, and it's kind of, as you were saying, like a fantasy, and a male fantasy, because again at the end, like, look, yeah, I fucked her.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I still love you,
And Sandy's fine with it.
She's like, 3 days into knowing this asshole, and she's like, I'll forever love you. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I definitely get that. I got the little bit of the male gaze persuasion there of, this sort of fantasy. And not only that, too.
He went back to the diner, had another chicken salad sandwich, and he wrote it down like, can sleep around, and she doesn't care.
I won't take credit for this, but I did see a pretty funny comment from somebody else who was talking about how like awesome Sandy is as like a person in this movie, and how vanilla and horrible Jeffrey is when Sandy's in the car and she's talking about her very like crazy and profound dream that she had about the Robins coming in, and then Jeffrey goes, "You're a neat girl," like, and they were like, wow, this fucking guy, she has a profound share her
Robins and light and the love, cool.
Yeah,
basically. Want to go see Back to the Future with me? It'll be a rockin' time.
Yeah, like she tells the story, and he's like, I like Heineken. Yeah, that dream is cool and all, but I like Heineken. It's good. Yeah, So I definitely get that too.
Have you listened to The Replacements? I've been listening to them a lot in college and the radio, and it's been pretty cool.
There is definitely that thing where you're kind of like, oh, fucking Jeffrey in this movie. Like, because I do feel that he is a frustrating character in terms of how he acts. I don't think that the film necessarily comes to a good conclusion about Jeffrey and Sandy either. Like you said, he's forgiven. And like he did some kind of heinous things in this movie. When you really get down and think about it, like he's been seeing Sandy, and you know, obviously there are some sparks there. And not only does he like seem interested in her, and kind of like he's also older, so he's kind of got that influence over her. But he also kind of single-handedly destroyed her relationship with that other guy, and he's just now like kind of like, whatever. Yeah.
Who shows up like Biff Tannen drunk and ready to fight. Which, by the way, listen, I got news for your friend. We've been best friends for like 25 years. If you're like, my wife left me, let's get drunk and chase her down in a car, I would be like, hey, you know what? Probably not going to work out.
Probably not a good idea.
So the fact that like when that's happening and like the friends come piling out of the car, like, and she's like, stop, don't beat him up. And he's like, shut up, I'm going to beat him up. It's not about you, bitch. It's about me. Stole my girl. Friends are sitting there like, what do you do? I mean, you're there probably for the show.
Well, not only that, but like even...
But like you're not helping. It's not like, you know, you're there for the fireworks. You're not there to...
Even as Mike is like, oh, I'm sorry about this. Like, I didn't realize there is a naked woman with
which is hilarious too,
who is assaulted over here,
which is hilarious too, because as soon as Dorothy comes rolling up and she's beaten and bruised and her, you know, she's flopping around naked, and he's like, sorry man, I didn't know that you... Oh, wow.
Yeah. But then the other guys are like, I thought we were gonna mess this guy up. What's going on? Mike has some awful friends, I guess. One thing I wanted to point out too that I thought was interesting about this movie is that, I don't know if you noticed, but it has a lot of shots of Jeffrey walking across the road, like specifically crossing the road, which I felt again was a nice little cinematographical symbolism of that sort of like crossing over from innocence into, you know, like adulthood, recognizing, you know, the more realistic elements that are happening around you. I don't know if you noticed that too much, but there's a nice...
No, I did. And the recall too of him walking up and down the stairs to the apartment
from like light into dark, and it's
with the nice noir-esque, you know, angles and such.
Yeah. What do you think about the whole visit to Ben?
Why am I drawing blank?
The guy that
sorry. Jesus.
Yeah.
Love it. Don't understand why Frank's going there. But love it, because what ensues is just like a John Waters.
Yeah, right.
Like a John Waters, you know, David Lynch infusion of like...
It's such a bizarre encounter of like just this guy who's, you know, obviously weird.
You think like Divine was there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it kind of has that too. It's just like got some random older ladies in the, you know, just there hanging out. It's
which
great.
which also too makes you think like, you know, Dennis Hopper is a man of the 60s and 70s, because they're bringing a whole case of glass bottles of Pabst.
Get the beer.
You know, get the beer, and it's not a 12-pack. It's a giant fucking case of it. And then, get the glasses! I better get the glasses! I don't like, there's one thing I hate. It's fucking warm beer. Get me my cold beer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That whole scene, like, does it serve anything to the plot?
Yeah, agreed.
No. But it is memorable and part of the zeitgeist, because it's so fucking great. The whole playing of Roy Orbison's in Dreams, and, you know, him karaokeing to it, and, you know, it being a thing that Dennis Hopper gets off on, which we see later as he, you know, takes Jeffrey down to the sawmill to whoop his ass. It's so fucking great. And it's so simple and so just random and out there. You can see how, like, when you play, like, video games or, these days, or, like, watch, as you were saying, these neo-noir TV shows where they're getting their cues from. They're getting it out of here, because, again, like, it's not like, and again, this is somebody saying that is not, well-versed in David Lynch's oeuvre, but it's not like something you see on the regular. And it fits really well. It's a nice little break. But does it add anything material to the story? No, but it's great. And it works. And God bless them for coming up with that whole scenario. Because it's just beautiful. And that's not just because I love Roy Orbison.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it, again, like you said, does it serve like a specific purpose in the movie? No, but it does still, again, set up this like really weird, bizarre encounter that just sort of marks this, the strangeness of Dennis Hopper's character. It sets up this idea of inviting Jeffrey into this very unique and different situation he's never been in before. I think it just works really well to set up this really surrealistic encounter that sort of lends itself to the dreamlike element of this movie. And I guess I want to come back to that dreamlike element too, because the movie does have a lot of symbolism about dreams. Of course, Sandy mentions her dream specifically, and the Robins do come at the end of the movie. There's the obvious reference to In Dreams. And then at the end of the movie, there's almost a very like dreamlike element to the way that it kind of ends on a very happy note of, the Robins coming back. Everybody's kind of happy. Sandy and Jeffrey are together. The parents are together. They're all having a nice little barbecue. It almost led me to think like, hey, maybe there was an ending where this was all a dream.
I was going to ask you if you thought this was a dream or not.
It sometimes in a way does seem like it. It almost seems like it could be a dream of an escapism from Jeffrey's father's accident. You know what I mean? Like the whole idea of the accident occurs. There's this escapism at that point to obsess over the mystery instead of dealing with the the consequences of his dad's accident. I could see it that way. I don't think that the film necessarily ends in that where you can draw that conclusion, but it does often feel like there may be this dreamlike element to it that the film is not, it doesn't necessarily explicitly state, but it's there. It could be studied that way, I think. I think there's a lot of interpretations that you can do for Blue Velvet. I think probably the one that just makes the most sense is to follow it logically, while also kind of examining the psychology of it and the loss of innocence. That's my overall takeaway from it. The themes is just overall loss of innocence and a coming of age story, basically.
Excuse me, Chief.
Yeah, I'm losing you here. Anything else that we didn't mention that you wanted to talk about?
Tits.
Tits. Yeah. Dennis Hopper literally calls Isabella Rossellini's character tits like multiple times throughout the movie. And that whole pinching scene too.
In the car with your bros
just
watching
so demented. What are those? What are those? That's a great scene from Dennis Hopper as well.
Boobs!
Losing absolute control and having like a sort of like infantile experience.
I was say a man who's had sex with probably 3,000 women. Boy, he's still like like a child. Like boobs.
I know, it's great. All right, so Hilarious stuff.
What about Brad Dourif? You didn't comment on Brad Dourif.
Yeah, he's basically himself here. I mean,
just
yeah,
Weasley.
he's got the Weasley laugh. I don't know why, but I just love the fact that when he's being a babysitter outside the door when Dorothy goes in, he just stands on the couch for some reason. Just like for no reason, he just gets up and stands on the arm of the couch. Just, I guess, maybe just to sell how demented these dudes are. This guy stands on a couch with his fucking shoes on. Who does that? But yeah, no, he's great in here. Just he doesn't have a huge part, but it's one of those moments where you're like, yep, there he is, Brad Dourif. Yeah, anybody else we didn't talk about? I think we pretty much covered every like, main character in this movie. What do you think about the soundtrack too?
It's great. I love the nice late 50s, early 60s rock stylings. Definitely fits the tone and mood of the film. And I think the score itself is pretty good. It's very, very noir-esque and fits the scenes pretty well when it comes to, the moments that are in the action that's going on in the film. Fits the film really well. Like it a lot.
So on a scale of 0 to 10, random women dancing on a car top for no reason, what would you give Blue Velvet?
How dare you? For one, I mean, Roy Orbison's play, for God's sakes.
So you must dance.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
With her fish top and her like old lady titties, just bam.
Yeah, it doesn't matter that Frank's threatening to send a love letter Jeffrey's way. Dancing.
Oh, that's the other thing I want to talk about real quick. Sorry, because I was gonna say, yeah, before we go into it, Frank, is it repressed homosexuality or just trying to
like
just be assertive,
intimidating
and powerful?
I don't know.
Whip his dick around, because he does put like the lipstick on, which they play in Dreams again when he's getting ready to whip Kyle MacLachlan's ass, but he's like, yeah, play Candy Colored Clown, play him, and he's kissing him on, all over.
I think it is. I think it is meant to, and maybe was further explored in the longer cut, because you also do get that scene where he's sort of watching Ben in more than just, he's singing kind of way, almost like an alluring kind of way. And also to the point where he gets pissed off because he sees the women in the club and turns off the music when he starts to get like too into it, and it says, you know what, we're fucking leaving. There's that sort of repressed homosexuality of him sort of, and not only that, but like him almost envious of like how suave Ben is.
Suave, he's so suave.
I think it is
fucking suave.
I think it is that sort of idea that's just not super well explored in this, but is there. That's my interpretation. All right, so 0 out of 10.
I was gonna say, I don't. Not only that though, too, I do think the film is. Then I could be totally wrong. So I do think the film is queer coded. Like it's got a lot of. I think that's part of the enjoyment of the people that Frank carouses with, is these, when that whole, I guess, brothel part, like, John Waters' whole bit kind of, definitely comes off as, just queer coded fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it is definitely there. You could see it that way.
So, again, sorry to interrupt. Your rating.
No, you want me to go first?
Let's have you go first this time.
All right, yeah. I would give this a...
What was the scale again?
0 out of 10 women dancing on car tops unnecessarily. I would give this an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed Blue Velvet. I thought it was a very good experience. Was very enveloping as the movie starts out in this sort of like, sort of idealistic scenario, and then moves into a very much darker scenario that kind of conjures that noir-esque element to it. I think it's it's been very inspirational to a lot of different things, especially those that deal with like that small town atmosphere. And I think that, in terms of the way that it's presented, I think it's very kind of shocking how it moves from this sort of, innocent, happy-go-lucky encounter at the beginning to a very sort of depraved element to it that kind of is still shocking even to this day. I think that it has a lot of great things going for it. The voyeurism, the sort of the S&M elements to it, the sexuality at play, and eroticism. I think that it is very inviting to audiences because they want to follow along with this mystery. They kind of have I think it kind of invites you to be sort of like Kyle MacLachlan's character in this movie to a certain extent, see yourself in it. Especially for those people who are like sort of into true crime. I think that they could really relate to this. And I think it just works really well as a movie. Very entertaining, can be analyzed as well for various elements that it has in its themes. And I really enjoyed myself. I found it great. Found it, really shocking at times. And I was pleasantly surprised by how much I really enjoyed this movie. So 8 out of 10 for me.
I will agree with you and then some. I'll give it 8.5 out of 10.
Ooh. Oh,
I liked it a lot. I thought I was thoroughly engaged throughout this film. I had a terrific time. I love the neo-noir aspects. I love how well and it's shot, how artistic and keen his eye is when it comes to the shots and the editing. I think it's a fun story that's out of left field, that's incredibly voyeuristic and taking a mishmash of genres of these Hitchcockian suspenses, these noir films, these sexual thrillers, and combining all in like this coming of age story and combining it into one fun, enjoyable, film to watch. I think it's got a lot to offer. I think Dennis Hopper is the first and biggest standout here. He doesn't show up into the film until it's a 2-hour film. An hour in, almost like 43 minutes. I time stamped it. Like, when does Dennis Hopper show up? Man, but it's great. It's very engaging. The stories, a nice little mystery. I liked it a lot. I was thoroughly engaged the entire time. I only checked the timestamp twice, which once was when I went to pause it to go to the bathroom. The other time was when I checked to pause it to see when Dennis Hopper showed, the timestamp when Dennis Hopper showed up. Laura Dern is great as like a virginal love interest. I think Isabella Rossini is great as, a dominated, tortured, damsel in distress, I guess you could say. I think Kyle MacLachlan does a pretty damn good job as being this aloof, disinterested in the things going around in life outside of this mystery. I think it's a well-paced, well-put-together film. I like it a lot. And it's got me wanting more David Lynch films to go and watch. I look 8.5 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome.
And I will say too, because I watched on Max, when I watched it, they must have added in for the time being, rest in peace David Lynch, because when you boot it up, they had like a card saying David Lynch, and
oh, did they? I didn't notice that
Yes.
because I watched it on Max as well, but I didn't notice that because I searched for it directly.
Yeah. When you click on, when
interesting.
I went to watch it, it had like a little quick thing that they added. Like it's only 2 seconds.
Oh, yep, I
but-
see it. Celebrating David Lynch. I see
Yeah.
they have most of his movies. Really, they have
Yeah. Mulholland
Eraserhead,
Drive,
Twin Peaks, Mulholland Drive, Dune, Blue Velvet, Inland Empire. You got a bunch of them. Interesting. Good to know.
Yeah. 8.5 out of 10. I liked it a lot.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's it for Blue Velvet. Hopefully, we do some more David Lynch in the future. We should. I think next
David
week-
Lynch December.
There you go. I think next time, for our next episode, we'll be doing the giallo this time. And we're going to be doing The Cat of Nine Tails, the Dario Argento giallo film. Could have chosen a lot of different ones, actually. I have a few that I have on 4K, but The Cat of Nine Tails I have actually never seen before, so I thought that was a good one to do. But anyways, hopefully we'll be able to do a number of giallo films in the future here this year. I don't know. We'll probably pick some other stuff too, of course. Yeah. So was this one. So was Blue Velvet. So you're good. But yeah, I think we'll do that one next.
Let's just do Suspiria again.
Do it again, yeah. See how we feel about it this time.
We're gonna have to, go through. This is gonna be our side project this year because 10 years now. We're gonna just start re-reviewing films that we've already done. See if we changed our, if our opinions changed.
There you go.
So we're gonna do 2017 Suspiria, 2018, my bad, and listen to Tom York.
There you go. So yeah, The Cat of Nine Tails next. And then maybe some Valentine's Day thing. Maybe we'll go see that new movie, Hard Eyes, the slasher film that kind of looks like a 2000s era slasher.
Ooh, who's doing it?
I'm not even sure, to be honest with you. I know that
A Blumhouse turd.
I don't know if it is Blumhouse. I just know it's coming out in February for Valentine's Day. All right. So if you want to hear our coverage of The Cat of Nine Tails or anything like that, or if you enjoyed our episode on Blue Velvet, you should subscribe to us on any podcast app that you use. Sure, we're on it. So leave us a nice review on there and subscribe. Helps us out. We're on Blue Sky and currently Facebook. Don't know if that's going to continue or not. We'll see. And you can find us on I think I'm gonna just probably start some other social medias as well. So for the podcast specifically, you can find us on YouTube as well if you feel like you want to listen to our episodes. If you're just like got YouTube up and you're sitting around, you can find us on there. It's on our Cultsploitation page. And we have an email address, bloodblackrunpodcast@gmail.com, where you can write to us, let us know what you like, what you don't like, what movies you want us to watch, and we'll take that into consideration. And you can donate to us on our Patreon page or our Spotify page. Anything you donate goes back towards beer, so we appreciate that in advance. Other than that, hope you enjoyed our episode on Blue Velvet. And until next time,
Take care.